RuneScape's market just had its worst day in history, everything is crashing, and there's seemingly no end in sight. Some players are so concerned they've even asked for trading to be removed or warding to be forced into the game. This video will explain why the market is crashing, and answer the question I see many players asking: is the RuneScape economy's downfall around the corner? Before I get started, I'm by no means a financial advisor. I'm like 2 classes away from a business degree if that counts. But hey, since the internet's new currency seems to be exposure, you can help me get paid for free by pressing that like button. Now, why is the market crashing? There's a lot of theories floating around, and this isn't a case where just one of those can be correct. First, it's summertime. College is letting out, leaving the average student with more free time, but most of the world is still locked down. Where do all these bored college kids turn? Good old reliable RuneScape. Who needs the outside world when you can spend all summer clicking the same 3 buttons over and over? Even during a normal summer, RuneScape's market almost always sees a crash, and the fact that everyone is still stuck inside only compounds this. Is the player count as big as it was when Old School peaked in November? No, but there's still more players than previous summers. But let's say the player count doesn't increase at all. People that play year-round will still have more free time to play longer in the summer, thus driving prices down as they can do more raids, fight more bosses, and so on. Speaking of items earned from raiding, like twisted bows and scythes, if they're so useful, why do they continue to decline? The older an MMO gets, the less valuable every item will become unless there's extremely calculated balancing or an item sink. Things like sharks are always in demand because they can be consumed. They rise and fall based on how many people are fishing, cooking, or bossing. If we look at items like the T-bow, the average player will only ever need one. Every day, T-bows are pumped into the game, meaning more and more players will have one. As more players own them, the demand shrinks and the price goes down over time. Eventually, we may get to the point where everyone in RuneScape can afford a T-bow, but by then we'll probably have some new weapon, like the ancient Super Turbo Twist Blowpipe Bow Combo Pack. GP is also potentially increasing in purchasing power. Jagex has been removing a lot of money from the game with the dual arena tax. If enough GP leaves the game, your GP actually becomes worth more. So far, the tax has removed 17 trillion GP from the game as of a Jagex data stream from February of last year. According to Mod Bruno, just a few years prior, the total amount of GP in the game was only 16 trillion. So being able to remove 17 trillion GP in just a year or two after the tax's release is insane. Now here's the thing, we don't truly know how much GP enters the game every day, but this tax is estimated to remove about 31 billion every day. So, is your GP actually worth more? We'll probably never know, because for all we know, 200 billion enters the game every day. Gold farmers are also learning much better methods to make money. Even just a year or two ago, the average gold farmer's abilities peaked at being able to do things like Zulrah, Volcano, and the Revenant Caves. With the caves nerfed pretty much beyond usability, they've been expanding out to harder and more rewarding content. Content that drops actual unique items you can't get anywhere else. Many of the Revenant Caves drops were things that would always hold their value. Dragon plate legs can be alked, runes are constantly being consumed, and even though most gold farmers may not have ever seen a unique item like a Vigora's chainmace because of how rare they are, they still made ridiculous amounts of money. Bosses like God Wars, Chambers of Xeric, and the Nightmare of Ashihama don't really drop those kinds of items. They drop very few alkable resources or gold, and also drop very rare uniques. Essentially, you don't profit at any of these bosses unless you get one of those uniques. With the caves gone, the high scores for high-level content has become overrun with gold farmers. Now, what about good old bot farms? I think you know what these are by now, but believe it or not, there's a lot of them. With bots sucking up skilling resources 24/7, it's no surprise they're dirt cheap. As far as I'm aware, bot farmers will typically bot the same amount of time year-round, meaning they won't make a dip any deeper necessarily. They're just always consistently bringing the economy down no matter what point it's in. However, when a Twitch Prime promotion occurs, botting explodes. Things like Pyramid Plunder and Mage Training Arena get overrun. Unfortunately, a Prime promotion started on May 18th and ends June 22nd. Another easy way to explain why the PVM market continues to decline is there's no PVM content scheduled for release, sort of. Challenge modes for both the Theater of Blood and Nightmare of Ashihama are releasing soon, but this isn't new content, so it's not gonna scratch that Raids 3 when itch. Plus, most people who are excited for these likely own all the gear they'll need to complete them. Combat Achievement Diaries are also right around the corner, but they're also not necessarily new content, and they've been right around the corner since February. The main reason for that is the Blowpipe Nerf has been delayed multiple times due to the outrage Jagex faced when they tried it the first time. Even though the nerf has not happened yet, the Blowpipe, Toxic Trident, and Zulrah scales continued to dip. The Blowpipe isn't the only thing potentially getting rebalanced either. Some gear crashing may be attributed to the fact that Jagex is doing significant rebalances of much of the game's weapons and armor. Many players seem to have the what's next mentality. They're worried that the gear they own could be on the chopping block. Now you combine all of that and what do you get? Panic. This happens with every economic downturn in RuneScape and real life. People liquidate their assets because they're scared of taking a loss or losing more money than they already have, which causes the prices to dip even further, which if you're into crypto, you're probably pretty familiar with the idea of panic driving the price down. So this all seems pretty bad. The economy is on a downward spiral and there's currently no end in sight. But calm down, don't panic. This is normal. In my opinion, don't sell your items, especially ones you use a lot. This is the lowest point Old School's economy has ever been in. Will it continue to dip more? Maybe, but I think we're far more likely to see an increase in the coming months as more content is announced. We have no idea if RuneFest is occurring this year or not, but even so, Jagex will likely announce the plans of next year's content starting sometime in the fall. Everything has already dipped so far from the last few months, and if you sell something hoping you can save your precious GP, you may be kicking yourself when you try and rebuy the item in a few months and it's worth double. If you're looking to buy new gear or maybe even make some money, now is the time. I'm not going to give any advice on what items to buy for obvious reasons, but the majority of PVM gear is at an all-time low. Not to mention with the Twitch Prime promotion, there's going to be quite a few heavily botted items that almost half in value. If you do the research and know where to put your money, there's potential for serious profit in the future. Here's the thing, even if Jagex doesn't make any changes I'll discuss in a minute, the economy will bounce back, at least in the short term. The crash isn't RuneScape's economic doomsday, but it could come sooner rather than later if the changes aren't made soon. So how do we fix the long-term economy? What can Jagex do to prevent doomsday from coming? Well, Jagex has already gotten started on it. Crackdowns on bot farms and gold farming have gotten much better and frequent in recent months. They're implementing easy to create PVM content like challenge modes, which will hopefully hold the community over until they can announce something bigger. Plus, they're focused on the longevity of the game by rebalancing equipment that has needed it since really the day it released. But we still have one big glaring issue. The one big thing separating us from the eventual market doomsday, an item sink. Right now, there's only one major item sink in the game, Death's Coffer. You can trade in items to death in exchange for 105% of their grand exchange value. However, the coins you would receive from this cannot be taken out of the coffer. When you die, depending on what items you died with, you will need to pay a fee to reclaim them from death. If you previously sacrificed items to Death's Coffer, you can pay for whatever items you want to reclaim using that balance or with GP from your bank. This is an amazing item sink, but it doesn't get used enough to make the difference we really need. The community has already come up with a number of great item sinks. Rather than spend hundreds of hours developing something like warding only for it to fail, I like the idea of pulling multiple item sinks over the next few months. They'll be small, and some will fail and some will pass, but overall it'll be an important improvement to the game without Jagex having to step on anyone's toes or waste dev time. Item sinks will allow items that currently exist to lose less value over time, and in some cases maybe even reverse their downward spiral so they become more valuable. But item sinks are really just band-aid fixes for old content. Another thing to keep in mind is how Jagex creates new drop tables. If drop tables are made a certain way from the start, it greatly reduces the need for an item sink. Let's say you're trying to make money, so you look up a guide on the wiki that makes you 500k an hour and you get started. You wake up tomorrow and the method has crashed to 50k an hour. Do you keep doing it? No, because there's dozens of other methods that take similar effort that you can earn 500k an hour from. Now let's say you're doing a method mainly for the XP it gives. If the profit the method earns you drops, you don't care because you're just after the XP. The profit is nice but not necessary. The same can be said about a lot of things in RuneScape. Smoke Devils provide some of the best Slayer XP in the game and drop the Occult Necklace, the best in slot necklace for magic. Players who train on them are mainly after the XP but don't mind the profit. So when the Occult drops from 500k GP to 150k, those players fighting Smoke Devils don't care. They're just there for the XP and will train no matter how low the Occult's price gets. When Jagex keeps this effect in mind, it allows for much greater content. The average player doesn't kill Basilisk Knights for XP. They're there for a chance at a valuable Basilisk Jaw. Let's say the Jaw starts to drop in price. People will seek out other money-making methods, which gives the Jaw time to recover. So is RuneScape's market doomsday around the corner? No, we're still very far away from it, and if the proper steps are taken now, it'll never happen. Speaking of huge changes made to RuneScape, did you know Jagex used to have a game developer's internship program, but the program was cancelled after just a year? If you want to learn why it crashed and burned, check out the video I have linked on screen right now.